Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Saturday morning practice, Saturday afternoon for those from Europe, and late midnight for those from Asia. And the word that I choose to use today is recharge. Recharge. Now, of course, embedded in the word recharge is the word charge. And in modern day usage, it's like charging with your credit card, or to charge a beach like in the war. So the word charge has the idea of a reserve or a credit line, right? So you have to build up your credit before you can charge your credit card. And when you reach the credit limit, you can no longer charge. Similarly, when you charge the enemies, it's not just the resources, the materials, it's not just the human body, but it's also the spirit. And there are times when you have to pull back, not as a defeat, but to pull back and build up that reserve again. So our practice is really about recharge, recharging our health, not just physical health, but also the mental health. So we talk about the physical health as materiality, and the mental health as the spirituality. And in between, a little bit of both, is the bridge that we call the chi, the energy. Okay? And then come back. Again, sit up straight, grabbing the left shoulder, stretch to the right, and relax. That was a very intense exercise. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. So now the body reacts to that. It doesn't know any better, so it thinks that you're in danger. So it puts out stress hormone, so we got to let the stress hormone dissipate. So we talk a great deal in the past about these two autonomous nerve system. Autonomous that it doesn't require the brain. It works on its own. One is called the sympathetic and one is called the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is called the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic is called the rest and digest. So most modern people, all modern people actually, suffers from something called autonomous nerve disorder, meaning that we don't know how to turn it off. You can't turn off something that has no off button, okay? So it's like having the heater and the air conditioning at the same time. Just because you know how to turn off the heater, it doesn't return the room back into room temperature. You got to turn on the air conditioning. Similarly, you can turn off the air conditioning, but it doesn't warm up the house. You got to do so you got to know how to do both sides. And basically, modern people have lost the art form of rest and digest. We think we're rest and digest, but we're not. We just turn off the fight or flight. And so we have to relearn that, okay? We have to relearn that. And all of the diseases that we have these days, I wouldn't even call it disease. Disease means that there is a foreign agent and you're being attacked. And these are just illness, okay? Just you're not living your body in a harmonious way is what it is, right? So to create the harmony between the yin and yang is really, really important. And that's what I meant by recharge. Because you're depleted or your reserve, it's important to recharge. Okay? So this is a problem with the Western approach to health maintenance, is that we focus only on the body, number one. Number two is that we don't understand the harmony between yin and yang. And we keep thinking that the more intense exercise, the better, right? And if someone does it for 3 minutes, I should do it for 30 minutes. That means that this must be 10 times better. Not so much, okay? Because by doing intense exercise, what you're doing is you're actually exacerbating the problem by prolonging the time that you spend in the fight or flight. It's a balance, okay? Now we're going to move from the upper part of the body, from the fingers to the toes, okay? Now, there are 12 energy lines divided into yin and yang. So for each of the yin energy, there's an organ associated with that. And for each of the yang energy line, there's another organ associated with that. But there's a difference between the yin organ and the yang organ. If I translate it, the yin organ is what we call the treasure organs. These are the organs that are contain the essence of life, whereas the yang organs is what we call the vessel organ. These are the organs that you use to consume, to digest, and to manage waste. Right? So like the yang organs would be the intestines, small and large, the stomach, okay, and so forth. But the yin organ, the treasure organ, is the most important. So what are the yin organs? There are two associated with the hand because the heart is split into two, so there's actually three yin energy line. That's the heart and the lung. There's another three associated with the toes, and there are the kidney, the liver, and the splint. Okay, now Western medicine doesn't think much about the splint. In fact, they would remove it. Okay, the Chinese think differently. So when I started, I said the word for today is recharge. And embedded in the word recharge is the word charge. And fundamental to the word charge means that you must have some kind of reserve. And when you charge is when you deplete the reserve. But at some point, you have to fall back and recharge, put back on the reserve. So in this context, the reserve is the treasure organs. It's the treasure organs, okay? And by recharge, we means that we want to maintain the harmony among these treasure organs. So very often we think in very simplistic terms. So when we say maintaining harmony, oh, okay, that's yin and yang. No, yin and yang is an abstraction, it's a simplification. When we talk about harmony, it's really between the five elements, maintaining the harmony between the five elements. So what are the five elements? The water, the plant, the fire, the soil, and the mineral. And each one of them has a generative effect. One helps the other, it's synergetic. Now, this is actually very, very scientific. It's amazingly scientific. Think about the Earth, how the planet Earth is such a unique planet that we haven't been able to find a similar one yet. We will at some point, but not yet. And the reason that it can support life is not just that it has water, but it has these other things. But water comes first. Without water, there's no life, right? So when we try to find life in the universe, we look for water. But once you have water, then life comes in the form of algae or some things that would just grow in water. So that's the water and the plant, right? Because animal comes from plant, right? Animal comes from plant because of a virus attack. So we think so much about virus, we don't understand that virus is what causes life to begin with. But anyway, water is the source of life. Plant is the first realization of life. Once you have life forms, it starts photogenesis. Now you have fire, you have warmth. And once you have warmth, then the soil becomes usable, right? Because otherwise you have frozen ground, who cares? But the soil becomes to warm up, and now you can actually have more life, and life can then make progress, right? Evolve. But what's more important is that the soil contains the mineral, and the mineral is really what adds vitality to the water. So that is easy to understand. That is very scientific. In addition to the generative effect, one to the other, there is also what it would call a restrictive effect. For example, water restricts fire, right? So think about how the planet eventually evolved. If all you have fire, the whole thing would burn up like Mars, right? So you gotta have water to put out the fire. The fire melts the metal. The metal is the one that cleaves the wood, the plant. The wood is the one that reinforces the soil. And the soil is the one that actually can prevent flood. So you have this generative effect, and then you have these governing effect, and that's yin and yang. Now how does that apply to our body? Water is the kidney. We underestimate the importance of the kidney. Kidney is the foundation of life. Kidney is water. Without kidney, you will die. God gave you two for a reason. Now, there's a saying that when you have water, then you can start, when you have kidney, then the liver will start to function because the liver is plant, is wood. That makes sense, right? Because the kidney is what contains the essence that can produce marrow, and marrow would then is the one that generates red blood cell and white blood cell in the kidney, in the liver. Well, the liver generates blood. Now the heart has a function. It generates heat. Then the next thing is the soil. And in the Chinese medicine, the soil is the splint. The splint is like traffic coordinator. It's like it's the one that coordinate everything. It's the soil. Then the splint then helps the lung. That's why this is called the gate to the cloud. This is a very important energy point for the cloud. Because the cloud is not, the lung is not just to breathe. The lung is actually taking breath, taking mineral, taking nutrients from the outside, and then using the blood flow, bloodstream to distribute all through the body. It's the five organs working together that maintains harmony. But fundamentally, it's the kidney. So someone asked the question when I was talking about hair and how hair has to do with the kidney, like the skin has to do with the lung. And the question is that what can you do for losing hair? Unfortunately, I'm not speaking from experience. My problem is not that I don't have enough hair, it's that my hair gets very white, which is okay. My family is like that. I would just say that if it is true, if what I said is true, that hair has to do with the kidney, then I would start with the kidney. Now, let me talk about the symptoms for having a overstressed kidney. Constipation, losing hair, very cold hand and cold feet, urinating at night more than once, and having problem walking or climbing the stairs. All that are symptoms that are telling you that you have an overstressed kidney. The other one is very common, and we typically misassociate with something else, which is having a lower back problem. Now, the Chinese believe that the lower back is inseparable from the kidney. It is the mention for protecting the kidney. So those are the symptoms that is telling you that you have an overstressed kidney. Overstressed kidney is very common. We are doing nothing but overstressing our kidney living in modern society. We don't eat well. In fact, most of us don't even eat real food. We go to Costco and we get packaged calories. So it's not even about red meat, white meat, or vegetable, just food, just eating real food. Now, of course, beyond that, having a good balance between meat and vegetable is important. And most people say that actually if you eat too much meat, you have problems too. So I would just say find a balance. Now, at the same time, being a vegetarian doesn't guarantee health because a lot of the vegetarian dish is high in carbohydrate. So you gotta find the right balance on the way you eat. Then it's about drinking. We don't drink enough good quality water. Remember I talked about the water, the wood, the fire, the soil, and the mineral. The mineral is what adds vitality to the water. So make sure you drink good quality water. Chinese people often would boil their water. That is the worst kind of water. If you try to use that to pour over a plant, they would die. If you use that to put in your aquarium, your fish would die. In fact, we have this thing called the Opium War between the British and the Chinese because they were buying tea leaves from the Chinese and they were exchanging it with silver. At some point they decided that that's not sustainable. So along the way they conquered India and Afghanistan. They started to grow opium. So they were using opium to exchange for tea leaf. One has to ask, why can't they just drink water? Because if you drink water without mineral, you will die. That's why they invent beer, because the sailors cannot just boil water and drink. They have to have preserved water, like in beer. So drinking water, good quality water is very important. Resting is very important, but not just hour of rest, but the quality of your sleeping. Meditation is a very good way to increase the quality of your sleep. Okay? And the list goes on and on. All that helps your kidney. And losing hair, having very thin hair, you can make it up with the right kind of food, but fundamentally it's a symptom for having an overstressed kidney. Anyway, back to what I talk about today. That the word that I choose to use today is called recharge. So embedded in that word is the word charge, which in modern day we use it as in charging a credit card, or in the time of war, charging the enemy, all which require reserve, right? You must have some kind of reserve. So when you charge beyond your limit, you depleted all your reserve. You're now in bad credit. It's very, very hard to rebuild it. Similarly, when you have an army charging the enemy and you're not paying attention to both the physical and the mental health as well as the supply line, and you get to a point where the morale of the soldiers are depleted, it's very hard to build it up. So the word recharge means that you don't use everything to the limit. And what you get to use in limit is what we call the treasure organs. Don't use your body to the limit. Okay? Constantly find a way to recharge them. Recharging by this in the sense of creating the harmony between your yin organ, between your treasure organs, between your kidney and your liver and your heart and your splint, which includes the pancreas, and your lung. Okay, working on these exercise, different way, not necessary in this way, but any other way, really exposing yourself to just beyond Western science. I'm not bad-mouthing Western science. I am not. Trust me, I am not. I'm asking you to be your own prime contractor and treat all your doctors and the pharmacists and the x-ray technicians as subcontractor. Take charge of your own health. That's all. Okay? So that's the word, recharge.